Welcome to IMAGI-NATION TV, Week 13, Episode 60, featuring designers on the theme of change. My name is Talia Dew and I'm a Year 12 student at Atwell College.
And I'm Cheyenne Southall, also in Year 12 at Atwell College. For me, change can be either good or bad, but it's what you make of it.
For example, Black Lives Matter protests and campaigns are a form of change. It's standing up for what you believe in to make a change.
Just this Saturday, we went to the Black Lives Matter protest in Perth to represent our culture. It was good to experience everyone come together to support the culture and show their respects.
I'm excited to co-host today because I haven't done anything like this before.
It's a great way to boost my confidence and we get to represent our culture.
What an incredible way to start a Wednesday and talking about theme of change. It's great to hear that you guys have been involved in some of the protests taking place in Perth. And yeah, thanks for joining us. How you feeling, Talia and Cheyenne, about being on the show today?
Really excited.
Yeah, it's
really excited. Awesome. Is there anything that you'd like to learn from today's episode as we like talk to our guests on the panel?
I think it'd be a great confidence booster, like learning new things that we haven't before.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Boost your confidence. I can tell you now that at AIM, that getting out of your comfort zone is one of the things that we encourage you guys to do. And I don't think I've been in my comfort zone the whole time that we've been doing IMAGI-NATION TV. So yeah, definitely some growth that can happen with that. Thanks to everyone for joining us. We do have Talia and Cheyenne as our co-hosts today, and yesterday, Tuesday takeover with the youngsters, we had a failure time that was incredible. Anna Lee ran a really engaging session, and she said that one of the most important changes that you can make is to change attitude, and then that then impacts the change in your community. And if you can change your community, you can change your country. If you can change a country, then why can't you change the world? So for today's show ahead, we've got the designers and we'll be unlocking some of their perspective of change in the industries that they do. Right now, we're going to go back to our co-hosts, Talia and Cheyenne, and they're going to introduce the partner school and also the live audience.
Okay, so today we have heaps of Atwell College students in the live audience watching on. We want to say hello to them. We have
Isabella, Kiana, Kobe, Ryder, Nikita, Michaela, Rashani, Jonty, Keelan, Madison, Brett, and Eduardo.
So how are you guys feeling today?
Good. What would you guys like to get out of today?
We'd like to learn how to change the world and what we're trying to do. Sorry.
What does change mean to you?
Change is good. It can happen at home and at school and for our culture. Change is not something to be afraid of.
What's an example of a time you've been a part of change?
I think a time we've been a part of change was during the recent pandemic of COVID-19 and when we had to stay at home instead of going to school. And it was hard for most of us because we couldn't see our friends, but coming back was also good.
Yes. So enjoy the show, guys.
Now, we are lucky to have our Associate Principal here on the show, Mr. Brendan Blakely. How are you going today, Mr. Blakely?
Yeah, fine. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Are you ready for the 60 seconds challenge?
Oh, I don't know, but I suppose let's go.
Actually, before we start, I'd like to ask you some questions.
Okay.
So how are you feeling about being on the show today?
I think it's really cool. I've been part of the setup, and the kids from Atwell College look like having a great time, and I can really see that you guys are getting into it. So I think it's a really cool experience.
For the 60-second challenge.
Am I ready? Yep, go on. Let's go.
Okay, let's start the clock.
What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Everyone being kind to each other. There's no need not to be kind. Just everyone being kind.
What is your greatest fear?
Licorice. I don't like licorice.
Which living person do you most admire?
Living person I most admire. Probably my mum. She's great. She's raised great kids, and she's such a nice person.
On what occasion do you value rebelliousness?
On what occasion do I value rebelliousness? Well, if something means enough to you, then you should be able to speak up. And if that can look like a bit of a rebellion, then that's okay, because sometimes people need to hear that message. So I'm really behind that. If someone you need to stand up and speak up for yourself, and if you need to get a group of people together and really deliver a really important message, then go for it. I'm right behind it.
Cool. So time's up.
Oh no! Fantastic. How did I go?
Pretty good. You got, I think, a few questions. Yeah,
Yeah, good. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. That's been awesome.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Talia and Sharon. I think you did a great job, Mr. Bleakley, and just want to thank you for all of the work that you do and the school staff do in the schools to support the kids, especially through COVID and being away from school. So I appreciate you spending time with us and supporting the work that AIM does as well. How about we go to the live audience before you jump off the call, and we'll see if they can give you a rating out of 10, see how you went. Live audience, do you have any feedback? How do you think your associate principal went? Can you give him a score out of 10?
Out of 10, I think you did pretty well.
Yeah, 10.
10.
10's all round, perfect score.
Thanks, guys. I'll bring the chocolate through later.
Amazing. So heading into our next segment, we have launched an initiative called This Hoodie Pays Rent, and we currently have 29 hoodie connectors across South Africa, Uganda, Nigeria, Australia, and America. These connectors are out selling hoodies to pay for their rent, and we've also been able to distribute a collective $6,581 so far. That's amazing. Here's Isaac, one of our hoodie connectors, to give us an insight into why he's on board with the initiative.
Hey guys, I'm Isaac. I'm a 20-year-old uni student who currently lives in Canberra and is really enjoying himself. I'm from Sydney originally and moved to Canberra to go to uni, and it has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. My connection to AIM began in 2019 with signing up and becoming an AIM mentor and then an AIM intern. It was a wild ride mentoring in 2019, going to Queen Bean High School and John Paul College. This was probably one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, as I had the privilege of being able to provide help to the kids. I decided to sign up as a hoodie connector because all someone needs to do is look around and see what's happening and see people need help. Everyone is doing it tough right now, and the little money that I help raise will go to help those in need. And honestly, if even one person is helped, then it's been a good day. Because of the coronavirus, like a lot of people, I've lost my job. Fortunately, I've had the opportunity to become a Hoodie connector, and this will mean that I'm able to keep living and paying rent with the extra help that it's providing. Everyone stay safe out there.
Great to hear from you, Isaac. And if you would like to be a Hoodie connector or buy one of these hoodies to support people who have found themselves unemployed throughout this time, jump over to our website at aimmentoring.com. And while you're there, also you can check out our other apparel and register your interest to mentor with us this year. And if you just need a boost for Wednesday, you can read some really inspirational stories on kindness as well. For our next section, we have Minister Ken Wyatt joining us. Welcome to the show, Mr. Wyatt. Ken Wyatt, how are you going? How are you feeling today?
I'm good. I feel great. And tell you what, it's hard to follow Mr. Bleakley when he gets 10 out of 10. That's perfection.
Yeah. So we have this segment is 5 minutes for you as a government leader to uncover how we organise societies from yesterday, today and tomorrow. And before we jump into it, I just really want to thank you for joining us, because it's great to have leaders in Parliament invested in the work that we do to help us inspire young people to be change makers and leaders. And one question that I have for you before we jump into your section is considering, or this is with the assumption that you've had some hurdles along the way through your journey. Considering what you know now, do you have any advice for yourself as a 15-year-old?
Actually, as a 15-year-old, if I was looking forward to the future, I would still make the same mistakes I've made because I've learned from those mistakes. And the point I'd make is don't be afraid of failure, because from failure, you learn to regroup and then come back in a different way. And that's been the best journey. Even in this job, I still have to learn about where I want to be in terms of the work I'm doing as a minister, but also knowing that I have to influence a lot of people to get to that spot.
Yeah, great answer. Hates to learn in those moments of failure. So we've got 5 minutes to give us a lowdown on being a government guru. The stage is all yours.
Well, I wouldn't see myself as a guru, but I'd see myself like I did as a 15-year-old, where I could make decisions for myself. I still had to, in making those decisions, influence my mother's thinking, my father's thinking, and other people around me. And that doesn't change. Even when you're a minister, you have to influence the Prime Minister about your idea and where you want to go, and then you have to influence Cabinet. And so you've got 20 people to influence. And as a school prefect, I had to use those same skills to influence teachers and fellow students, because governing doesn't give you a crown and a rod that you stand there and you just say you have to do this, because that's not possible. People don't operate that way anymore. And so what we have to do is work out what are the key things that we want to achieve, and then how do we work out the key points that's going to influence people. But I have to walk in two worlds. One is in mainstream as a minister, the other is Indigenous. In our communities, elders are our most revered and respected leaders. And often when they say something, a community listens because they know the collective wisdom of that individual. So you have leadership and cultural and elder authority. And then we have community authority, in which somebody will speak. And I've often been in meetings where people say what a great young person it is. And then I say to them, watch that young person and how they interact based on body language as to whether they've got the authority or the approval of their community and their elders. Whereas in this job, I can make decisions and have the department implement them. But if they impact across so many people, then I have to influence every person in my party to support what I want to do, and then convince my colleagues on the other side to support what I want to put into place through legislation or through the work I'm doing on the voice, constitutional recognition, and all of those. And they're all important steps, but as a leader in governance, you've got to consider the past, what you hope to achieve in the present, but think about what that means for the future, for the next generation that comes after you, or the next team that comes after you. I think the most important thing that all of us have to think about, and I say this often, when you've done time in leadership, start thinking about the young people or the people you want to mentor to be better than you, so that when you step out, you've got a number of people who are capable of taking over the leadership, doing the work that you've started, but allowing them also to have their own shaping of the direction. And when you step out as a leader, you can't go back and say, hey, that's not the right way to do it. You allow people the freedom in their new leadership roles to do it. You can become a statesman or a mentor who gives sage advice, but without challenging whether somebody is right or wrong. And that's a different skill altogether. So culturally, we have a structure. Politically, we have a structure to operate in as well. And I'll leave it there for any questions.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. You touched on lots of different things. And I think one of the things that'll probably stay with me is that as a leader, you do what you can to build up an initiative or a program or like legislation, as you said, for someone else to take over. 'Cause change does take a long time to implement. And yeah, that's what I always focus on with the work that I do here with AIM, that in the view that one day the mentees that we work with will take over to continue creating the change. We actually do have lots of comments coming in on the chat line, and one of the questions from Angus Gallagher for you, Ken, is what's the first steps for a young person looking to take a seat in Parliament House?
Angus, you need to decide which party you are aligned to in your thinking and then join a branch. When I started, I joined a branch, held office positions. I wasn't going to go into politics at all, but I'm glad that I did. And I went in at the age of 57 because I wanted experience behind me. So the first step is join a branch, get known, build a network of supporters, build a presence, and show that you are capable of being considered by constituents when you stand for a seat. Because you've got to convince, in my case, I had to convince 102,000 people that I should be worthy of election. And luckily, I won the seat by 948 votes.
Overwhelming support. Yeah, thank you for that. That's some great advice. I think we'll go to our co-host Talia and Cheyenne to see if they have any questions for you today.
So I've got a question for you. What challenges have you faced being in Parliament?
Actually, I was lucky. I worked for Ernie Bridge, who was the first Indigenous member to be elected to the WA Parliament. So I saw what Ernie went through. One thing that you have to set aside is when people make comments that you could easily say that is racism, or a comment that hurts you. But what you do is you work on the basis that they may not understand, and they make comments that are ill-informed, and you have a conversation with them. And I've had that plenty of times where people have made a comment, but when you sit and spend time with them, they gain an understanding. They don't always come to your side of thinking. So that's the challenge, is convincing people.
Yeah, part of storytelling, isn't it? Thanks for those questions, Talia and Cheyenne. And before you go, Minister, I think one thing that I saw in an interview that you had in October 2019, you were talking about the voice and the constitutional recognition. You mentioned that there was about a 12-month plan, well, a plan for about 12 months to be able to bring that to the Prime Minister. Has COVID put a bit of a spanner in the works for that, or can you give us some good news that that's still on track?
Oh, the voice is well and truly on track. Constitutional recognition, we were running parallel. COVID-19 has impacted because what was more important was saving the lives of Indigenous Australians, particularly given their health status. And we've done a great job. There's 800,000 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, some with the most terrible health conditions. We only had 61 people test positive to COVID-19, and they were mainly in capital cities. So our community have achieved a great outcome, and I've been part of that journey with all of the leaders. So But in terms of the other two, I remain optimistic, but I also have to be practical in what I can and can't achieve given the complexity of constitutional recognition, but the voice we will achieve.
Great, thanks for that insight straight from the horse's mouth of the Office of Indigenous Affairs. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll leave it on that note and hopefully see you sometime in the future. Thank you.
And thank you for what you're doing, and to the young people who are involved, you've got great opportunities to become great leaders in the future. The choice is yours. And take care, all of you.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us today. Next up, we are going to go to our design panel, and we have a quick video before we start, and we'll uncover some of the learnings for the kids as we work through them. So here's the video. So we're fortunate enough today to be joined by some highly educated researchers and entrepreneurs and strong women. Today we have Denise Hewett joining us, the founder and CEO of Script, Emily Kate Symes, founder of Eclos, you maybe have to let me know how to pronounce that, and also Janine Mohamed, the CEO of Lowitja, and maybe you guys will help me pronounce that one as well. Janine, let's start with you. Good afternoon now as it is over in Queensland. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm feeling deadly, thanks, Stephanie. I'm on Wurundjeri country, part of the Kulin Nation. Really excited about having a conversation with you today.
Thank you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. So I work for the Lowitja Institute. You said that really, really well. I suppose I lead an organisation that's just become Aboriginal community controlled. So it means our whole board is made up of Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander leaders. And what we're aiming to do is make a more united Australia and also create more Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander researchers. So our organisation supports them come up with the question that they want to ask and work with community about getting those answers. So our researchers really are change agents, they're designers, which is what we're talking about today, they're knowledge holders, knowledge navigators. Yeah, and I suppose what we all have in common at Lowitja is, making sure that Australia, is united, as I said, but also having an absolutely positive impact on the health outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
Yeah, amazing. I did watch an interview that you did when you were at a writers' retreat a couple of years ago, think tank, I think you called it, and you spoke about cultural safety, and I haven't really heard that term before, but I understood it immediately when you started explaining it, and I just wanted to know if you could break down the difference between cultural awareness and cultural safety for us.
Yeah, so that's pretty much been my life's work. So cultural safety is a Maori term from Aotearoa. So essentially what cultural awareness is, if I can start with that, is learning about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So it's kind of looking outwards. And of course, we know that there's over 300 different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nations. And so sometimes when we do cultural awareness training, we think that that can be applied to all Aboriginal people, but we're beautifully unique in our individual selves, in our families, and broadly in our community. So that kind of, trips people over a fair bit. What cultural safety actually is about looking inwards and understanding ourselves and our own biases, our racial profiling, what we might think of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and really unpacking where that comes from. So I used to work with nurses and midwives. They used to have trouble with asking Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples if they were, or any of their clients, if they were Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. And so I would sort of challenge them on that and say, well, what's the problem with asking Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, their nations, all of that? We ask about medications, what religions peoples are, all of these really personal questions. And when we break it down, they'd actually learnt some untruths about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and they thought that people might be offended if they were asked that question, and they also didn't ask if someone didn't look Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. So they'd learnt some things there too about what we look like. And as Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander peoples, we know that we come in all shapes, sizes and colours. So that's a little bit of an insight into, if you go through cultural safety training, how it begins to ask people to unpack all of that stuff and know thyself a little bit better, and the lens in which they view our mob, and how they can change that if they're committed to it.
Yeah, really great advice and important work that you're doing. I'm really inspired to hear that you're out there doing it, and I'd love to discuss further how we, just as everyday citizens, can elevate the platform for that message to become broader, to get it out. And, you know, we've seen a lot of people stand with us across the last week, side by side, so unpacking some of the things that we can do. So
really
yeah, we'll come back to you. And right now, let's go over to Denise, Love Hewett founder and CEO of Scripted. Afternoon, Denise. How are you feeling today? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored and excited to be here.
Would you like to give us a bit of an insight into the work that you're involved in?
Yeah, so I'm sure you guys all watch TV and movies, and as you watch TV and movies, sometimes you watch stuff and you don't see yourself on the screen. And for a long time, I don't think Hollywood has done a good job of representing the world appropriately. And so we built a system, designed a system to sort of help surface more voices from more people. Hollywood has traditionally been a closed door industry, and I know there's great stories all over the world that need to be surfaced. And so we're a hub for that. And we're the only script database in Hollywood that is free to upload, so it's not pay to play. So we encourage everyone from all over the world to share your stories, and then we work with Hollywood to surface great content to get them made into TV shows and movies.
Yeah, that's awesome. Finding a space for inclusivity. And I know that when you were thinking about, that you saw the need for this, that you came up against some barriers within the industry. And I think it was like 2 years that you said that you were told by the industry that it wasn't needed, that if you made good screenplays, then it would sell, and it didn't matter about inclusivity. At that moment of like external doubt, what got you through that, and how do you keep pushing forward to achieve like your goals?
I think you have to be obsessed with what you do. And for me, my life's mission is to live in an equal and safe world. And of course, I'm sure, as everyone in the world knows, we're going through a deep civil rights movement that is just, a tipping point. And really, it's a reckoning. And so I think I knew in Hollywood that this was happening a long time ago. And it was really challenging to convince people to maybe try to do business differently. But really what got me through was my deep passion for the work, my deep belief in stories and how they can heal the world, and the stories that I was so privileged enough to get to read through our platform and to help break writers. And a lot of my sage sort of mentors, like I had a lot of wise women in my life that gave me really key nuggets at times when I was contemplating whether or not to quit. And I think your community and the people that can inspire you are a big part of our recipe for success, because if we don't have the support or that nugget, it's really hard to keep going. And one of my mentors told me, I was about 2.5 years in, and I was like, it's just not working, and I'm just pushing, and I don't feel like people are listening. And she said, Denise, do you think a paradigm shift happens in 2 years? And I was like, and that's when I was like, oh yeah, this is a much longer fight. And if systemic racism and sexism was so easy to upend, we would have figured it out by now. So, we have to do a lot more work, and it's community work, and it's education, and it's getting people to believe in the world, the future that I see.
Yeah, great point. And I think Ken touched on that as well, as having people in your corner, so support around you, and that can include mentors or people of inspirational people that just believe in what it is that you do also. And then the element of hard work, I think, that goes into creating change is something that you maybe aren't prepared for when you first start it, but it's definitely necessary. With most of the stories that have been told previously not being inclusive, obviously there's a fair amount of stories out there that still have been untold. What are some of those that you think need to be highlighted?
Oh, there's so many. I think we've done a really poor job of Black narratives in America. It's immigrant narratives, We need more South Asian narratives. We need more Aboriginal narratives. There's so many stories that we haven't really told. We need more women in leadership. There's such a huge well to pull from, because Hollywood has told one story for a very long time from one specific gaze. So I look forward. I look forward to, you know, the future where everyone can go to the movie and have a choice of how they see themselves on screen.
Yeah, amazing. We might swing back to you and talk about how to unlock those stories or gain trust from people to get those stories to the stage where we can highlight them. Let's go over now to Emily Kate Symes. Thanks for joining us. Why don't you say hello and tell us a little bit about the work that you're currently involved in?
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I am the founder of EcoLove, and what we hope to achieve is to prolong the lifespan of fashion already in existence rather than buying new. It's been reported Australians produce about 6,000 kilos of textile waste every 10 minutes, when 95% of that could be recycled or upcycled. So we do dress hire, we take other people's things and we resell them. And it's just really raising awareness about the conversation behind sustainability, what that means for each person, being mindful of our shopping habits. But sustainability also means that we are inclusive. We all have the right to live in a better world. And so everyone should feel represented in that way. And so sustainability doesn't just limit itself to fashion, it's in every industry. However, we've decided that, you know, to target fashion because that's one of the most polluting. As a full-time model, I saw a lot of waste. You know, it's this disposable culture and an industry built on planned obsolescence where one season's dress is no longer prevalent and the next season it's quickly replaced. So just starting this boutique as a zero waste is just to start that conversation and, elevate sustainability, that secondhand isn't second best.
One of your interviews that I read, you mentioned that you're used to rejection from the modelling industry, but you found it hard to come to terms with when you were starting this business because it was for the benefit of the environment. How did that rejection help you at all in getting to where you are?
Yeah, definitely. Just being mixed race myself, I have experienced quite a bit of that growing up, and so that kind of prepared me for the rejection that came with starting something in sustainable fashion, because it is a lot easier and convenient to buy fast fashion, and there still is this stigma with secondhand that it's dirty or it's old hippie hemp clothing, but we like to show the opposite. We focus on quality over quantity, and, you know, just because something is secondhand, it doesn't mean that it's rags. So, you know, we get beautiful designer things that people have still had in their closet that otherwise still have tags, and rather than, you know, getting that thrown in the bin and adding to waste, you know, we want to save on precious resources and educate people to, you know, bring their things in. We try to resell them, and if not, we close the loop by also donating what doesn't get sold to charities. Therefore, getting rid of waste and getting that conversation really started with people in terms of how their mindsets are with sustainability.
Yeah, amazing. I think you'll be happy to know that I think that the shift has come. Obviously, there's massive climate change movements that are led by young people, but even conversations with my own daughter who's 17, she's really conscious around the products that she buys so it doesn't go down the drain and then pollute the ocean. So, yeah. I think we'll go over to our co-hosts, Talia and Cheyenne, and see if they have any questions for you guys before we jump back into a few more questions and try and draw some commonalities between the change that you guys are making. How you going, Talia and Cheyenne? Any questions for our panel?
Yeah, we've got one question.
Okay. This is for
Denise.
How long do you think until there is an Aboriginal superhero in a movie?
Oh my goodness, I hope very, very soon. If I have anything to do with it, very soon. I think that we're seeing a really important shift happening in America that's going to unlock a whole bunch of new opportunities. So I think we just have to keep protesting and keep pushing for what we want, and I will work on that.
That sounds so good.
Great question, girls. And I think we'll go back to Janine. And with what the work that you do, getting people to understand each other by looking inwards and being able to share their stories in a really safe way, do you see a connection between that? And is there any advice for Denise in how to get those stories out in a really safe way? Oh, sorry, we just got you on mute.
I think, you know, for me, you can't be what you don't see, you know, and so it's really important when we look around our world that we're reflected back at us, that we aren't ignored. And we see at the moment that there's, you know, the tearing down of historical figures that have had a negative impact on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australia. And that's one of the, I suppose, the examples I use when I talk about race, racism, critical race theory in Australia, is that we can walk down the street in Australia and see so many monuments to non-Indigenous Australia, yet we see very few of, you know, our heroes. So it's really important, you know, in modern Australia to begin to be seen and to begin to have that national pride in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australia. And what better way than to have an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander superhero? And I think storytelling, as Ken said earlier, is really powerful. I think stories of, you know, past atrocities are really important, but stories of, you know, great achievements that we can have national pride in, and there's plenty of those if we have people like Denise happy to uncover them. And I think, Steffi, you mentioned something really important too, and that's the trust that our stories are going to be represented properly. So in the industry, it's not just about having Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander actors, it's about us being everywhere, and it's about the industry being a culturally safe space. And we'll always make mistakes, as Ken said, you know, with those mistakes comes learning. But the first part is the discussion and the leadership. And embedding that into systems and designing systems that are culturally safe, so that when individuals leave, the environment, the culture of that institution remains the same.
Yeah, really great feedback. Trust is a hard one to crack, and one of the things that we always go to is turn up. Just turn up, do what you say you're going to do, and then start to build out from there.
Yeah, it's so important, hey, in that trust. But I think another part of my work is making sure, because we're 3% of the population in Australia, we have to have non-Indigenous allies in that other 97%, you know, because sometimes we get so sick of always having to tell the story, always having to fight the fight. So it's really important to have allies.
That's right, and important work that you're doing and the people that you work with ensures that, you know, the next generation maybe doesn't have to take it up from the same step that we had. So yeah, thanks for everything that you do. Like, I genuinely mean it. It means heaps to me. We'll go to the live audience now if they've got any questions that they've prepped for any of our guests on the panel today.
Yeah, for Emily, it's on. For Emily, I was asking, what are your opinions on making sustainable fashion more accessible for people with lower income?
Oh, definitely. So with sustainability, obviously with dress hire, that can make really expensive garments way more affordable. So a dress that may retail for, you know, $1,000, you may be able to hire for just a fraction of the retail price. It's sustainable. A lot of cases you may only want to wear it once. And that way, yeah, that makes it affordable for low income people, as well as whatever doesn't sort of sell within consignment stores such as ours. We also donate back to the community. So we're partnered with Wayside Op Shop, and anything that doesn't move, we request from our clients if they'd like to donate it, and then that goes within the community, and those prices are very affordable. So you can snap up really beautiful designer things within your local op shop. So that's what we're trying to do, really make sure that sustainable fashion is accessible for everybody.
Great question, guys. Is there any other questions from the live audience today?
No, we're all good.
Oh, awesome. You guys have been doing a great job. I think we'll open the floor for about 5 minutes and see if the panel has any questions for each other. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. So Denise, Emily, or Janine, do you guys have any questions for each other?
I'd love to know what more I could do as an organisation with the Indigenous and.
Sorry, was that you, Denise?
So was that question to me?
Yeah, but sorry, for Janine.
Oh, sorry, what was the question?
Sorry. Yeah, just how our organisation can build more awareness with what we do, and make sure we're inclusive of the Indigenous and really having that conversation going. And
I reckon it always starts with a plan and a sustained plan, and really having a look around your boardrooms and the decision making, and making sure that the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander peoples are involved in that, and especially people from the industry. I mean, I'm sure, Emily, your feedback to the modelling industry, if you have the right ears listening to you and the door open, it can be really important for planning and for their journey into the future.
Yes, thank you.
Great question.
Janine.
Sorry, yes, go.
What's your best advice? Because obviously sometimes we're talking to people that aren't ready to listen or aren't ready to be a part of the change. Mm-hmm. What is sort of the best trick you have learned to, as I say, turn people?
I probably, having done this for many years, always acknowledge that there's a certain proportion that will never change. And I think that's really important to acknowledge, because this work, I actually met the woman in the States who began the Black Lives Matter campaign. One of the things that we both had in common was an autoimmune illness. This work does take its toll with the microaggressions. So letting go was actually a really good lesson for me, and not knocking doors down, but taking the ones that are open and those opportunities that are open, because they're fertile ground, ready to, sow some seeds. And there's always those people that will, sit and have a conversation and seemingly are resistant, but then they'll have an experience 6 months, 12 months later, and it's really beautiful to hear from them and say, I had this conversation with my family and I could not believe it. And somehow they had an epiphany or an enlightenment from the conversation that we'd had. So it's not always immediate, and it's not always the right person to be putting your energy into. And like I said, you've got limited energy in this work. So.
And even if you don't hear from them, sometimes you plant the seed and you may not know that it blooms. Yeah. So it's always worth having the conversation.
Yeah, and I think gathering your allies and doing the work together is really important. I surrounded myself with good, like-minded people, and we sharpen each other too, because this conversation is constantly changing, and thank goodness our world is constantly changing. So we have to have different narratives for different people and different times.
Yeah, that's really great advice, and thank you guys for asking those questions. Before we let you go, we'll just throw to our co-hosts, Talia and Cheyenne. What have you guys learnt from today's episode?
With this experience of co-hosting, I feel like I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to use it to learn from it, be more confident, and yeah, that's what I've learned. Definitely.
So co-hosting today's session has definitely given me a confidence boost. I've learned about how people are making change in the world, such as Denise and Emily and Janine, and it's good to see how they make change.
Yeah, amazing. Great, guys. And considering what you wanted to get out of the show, I think that's incredible. And before we let our panel go, how about a 10-second bite size of advice for any teenager that's looking to take on the role of creating change in their community, whatever avenue that's in? Any advice for them? We might start with you, Denise.
I would tell you, I was always really ambitious and ready to achieve. And I would tell myself to relax, enjoy the process, because this is lifelong work. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And just enjoy the people that you meet and the worlds that open up to you through the process of creating change.
Yes, great, thank you. Emily, what's your 10-second bite-sized advice for teenagers?
Be the change you wish to see in the world. It's literally my favourite quote. If you want to see change, be that change. It all starts within, and it starts with awareness. We can't possibly change what we don't know or don't acknowledge. So in awareness, that begins a process of change.
Amazing. And wrap it up. It's over to you, Janine.
Yeah, I suppose for me, it's always don't let what others say about you define you. We are all, all of us in this nation are in the land of the dream time. So dream.
Beautiful. That was really nice.
And can I just request one thing?
Sure.
Can one of you write me that superhero movie and upload it to our site? I'll be looking out for your stories.
Sweet. We'll send out some info to the school with your platform that you have. Can we get the live audience to take themselves off mute and make a bit of noise for our panel today before we leave? Give them a big round of applause. Thanks so much for joining us, the school at Atwell College, and my two incredible co-hosts, Talia and Cheyenne. And I guess I'll leave you guys with this. In a world where there's so much pressure to be pretty, how about we be pretty smart? How about we be pretty brave? And how about we be pretty kind? I'll see you guys all here same time tomorrow.